I stepped off the plane feeling surprisingly energized after 2 unforgettable weeks traveling through Thailand. The temples glowing at sunrise, the street food bursting with flavor, the calm beaches. It had been exactly what I needed to escape my high-pressure consulting job and the non-stop petty nonsense of Pinterest estates. All I wanted now was my own bed and a long sleep to shake off the jet lag, but as my Uber turned onto my street, something immediately felt off. A police car was sitting squarely in my driveway. My heart jumped. My first thought was that someone had broken into my home while I was gone. As I paid the driver and dragged my suitcase toward the house, I noticed a family standing on my porch speaking with the officers. A man and a woman with 2 kids, relaxed, settled like they belonged there. The woman was holding a set of keys. My keys? Excuse me, I said, stepping around the cruiser. What's going on? This is my house. The officers turned toward me, their expressions instantly guarded. One of them spoke up. Sir, these homeowners called us because they reported someone attempting to force entry into their residence. I'm going to need to see some identification. Completely stunned, I reached for my passport. There has to be some mistake, I said. I've lived here for 6 years. I just got back from vacation. The man on the porch shook his head. We purchased this house 2 weeks ago. We have the deed and all the paperwork. We moved in yesterday. My stomach sank. That's not possible, I said. I never listed my house for sale. I glanced through the front window and felt a wave of horror wash over me. Everything I owned was gone. My furniture, my photos, my personal belongings vanished. In their place were unfamiliar sofas, tables, and half-open boxes waiting to be unpacked. One of the officers, a stern woman with her hand hovering near her holster, spoke firmly. Sir, I need you to step back. These individuals have legal documentation proving ownership of this property. This is insane, I said, panic creeping into my voice. I have mortgage statements, tax records, everything is on my phone. I can prove this is my home. But as I frantically scrolled through emails and documents, I could tell they didn't believe me. The new owners looked terrified, the children clinging to their mother. Somehow, I was the threat on my own driveway. I had no idea how this nightmare had even started. Before leaving, I'd done everything right. My mortgage was on autopay. My mail was on hold at the post office. I'd even paid a service to mow my lawn while I was gone. Nothing was out of order. The only unresolved issue had been yet another absurd notice from our HOA president, Karen Wilkinson. Karen had been tormenting me since the day I moved into Pioneerist Estates. A woman in her 50s, with a flawless blonde bob and her ever-present clipboard, she patrolled the neighborhood like a drill sergeant. Her most recent complaint involved the color of my mailbox. Apparently, charcoal gray violated community guidelines, which required slate gray. I'd ignored it, planning to deal with the nonsense after my trip. Karen was notorious for this behavior, warning letters for grass half an inch too tall. Threats of fines because my trash bin stayed at the curb 2 hours too long. Once, she had actually used a ruler to measure the spacing of my holiday decorations, claiming they weren't evenly aligned. But I never imagined she could take things this far. As I stood there being treated like a criminal, a familiar white SUV pulled up along the curb. Karen stepped out, polished and perfectly dressed as always, clipboard in hand. When she saw me, a smug smile crept across her face. Officers, she called out confidently as she approached. I see our neighborhood intruder has returned. As I explained earlier, when these lovely people contacted me, this man no longer resides here. He abandoned the property months ago, which forced the HOA to step in. What? I shouted, turning toward her. I've been gone 2 weeks, not months. You know that. Karen's expression hardened. The board has documentation indicating this home was vacant and abandoned, with HOA fees unpaid, for 6 months. They claimed they had followed every legal procedure to place a lien on the property and force a sale to recover unpaid costs. It was a complete lie. I had never missed a single payment, not once. Even the officers seemed doubtful by this point, but they explained that protocol still had to be followed. They advised me to contact an attorney immediately and resolve the matter through the proper legal channels. The next 48 hours passed in a haze of anxiety and disbelief. I checked into a nearby hotel and spent hours calling law offices until I finally found someone who could meet with me right away. Jessica Ramirez listened carefully as I told my story, her concern growing with every detail, especially as I described Karen's long pattern of harassment. "This sounds like outright fraud," she said, tapping her pen against her notepad. "But we need to act fast. If a deed transfer has actually been recorded, we have to challenge it before things spiral further out of control." With Jessica's help, we began assembling evidence. Bank statements confirmed every HOA payment had been made. Travel records proved I'd only been gone for 2 weeks. Emails from neighbors showed I had been living in the house right up until my departure. We also requested every document from the county clerk connected to the alleged sale of my property. What we uncovered was staggering. Someone had submitted filings claiming my home was abandoned and that I owed more than $15,000 in HOA fees and penalties. There were forged certified letters supposedly sent to me, falsified inspection reports, and even a fake notice announcing a public auction. Every trail pointed straight back to Karen and the HOA board. The most alarming discovery came when Jessica suggested we look into other recent sales within the neighborhood. 2 additional homes had been sold using similar fast-tracked lien processes over the past year, both while the owners were away for extended periods. One homeowner had been deployed overseas with the military. Another had been out of state caring for an ill parent. I was livid. "She's deliberately targeting people who can't fight back," I told Jessica. "This isn't harassment anymore. This is organized crime." The real turning point came when we uncovered Karen's connection to the real estate firm handling these rapid sales. Her sister-in-law was the broker, and records showed they had been splitting commissions. Even more incriminating was an email obtained through subpoena, in which Karen discussed identifying her next opportunity after noticing I had stopped mail delivery and scheduled a ride to the airport. Armed with this evidence, we went to the district attorney's office. Initially, they were hesitant, viewing the situation as a civil dispute. But once Jessica laid out the pattern of fraud spanning multiple properties, their tone shifted. "This is systematic real estate fraud," Jessica argued. "And it doesn't involve just Miss Wilkinson. It's a coordinated conspiracy involving HOA board members and real estate professionals." The case gained real traction after we contacted a local news station. The reporter, eager to expose corruption hiding behind manicured lawns and suburban smiles, immediately took interest. Their investigation revealed that Karen had been running the HOA like her personal fiefdom for years, intimidating board members into silence and funneling contracts to friends and relatives. The segment aired on a Thursday night. By Friday morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Neighbors I barely knew were calling to share their own experiences with Karen's abuse of authority. Many admitted they had been too afraid to speak up before. Even more significantly, a former HOA treasurer came forward with financial records showing Karen had been embezzling funds for years, treating association accounts like her personal bank. From that moment, everything moved quickly. Police, now fully engaged, secured warrants to search Karen's home and the HOA office. Inside, they found detailed files on homeowners' travel schedules, financial information, and what appeared to be a list of potential targets. Owners with valuable properties who traveled often. The family who had unknowingly purchased my house was devastated when they learned they had been drawn into a scam. Thankfully, the court swiftly voided the fraudulent sale, and the HOA's insurance policy covered their losses. I was allowed to return home, though much of my personal property had been sold or discarded during the fake clean-out. In a moment that neighbors would later replay endlessly online. Karen was arrested during an HOA meeting where she had been loudly denying every accusation. Officers interrupted her mid-speech, reading her rights as they placed her in handcuffs in front of the entire community. Her usually smug expression collapsed into disbelief and fury. "This is absurd," she screamed as they escorted her away. "I was protecting property values. These people should be grateful." No one was grateful when the charges were formally announced. Multiple counts of fraud, forgery, conspiracy, grand theft, and money laundering were filed. The prosecutor declared they would seek maximum penalties up to 25 years in prison and fines exceeding $1 million. Karen's carefully polished image finally crumbled at her arraignment when the judge denied bail, citing the seriousness of the charges and the risk of flight. She broke down in tears, mascara streaking down her face, as deputies led her away in an orange jumpsuit in unmistakable contrast to the tailored suits and pearl necklaces she once wore with pride.